Here we are back on the Nut. I'm Scott Freymuller. I'm here with Shelly Netco. And we're going to talk about, well, first it was patriarchy, but we crossed it out with our handy dandy Sharpie here. And then you wrote gender roles.
Gender roles.
So I'm going to let you take off with this one.
Well, I was listening to something the other day, and it was about patriarchy, and just and then I was talking with my girlfriend last night about that, because we got in the subject of dating, and then we got on to men paying for dates, expectations, all these kinds of things. And then it went into, well, what else do we expect? Not just on dates, but what else do we expect from, as, just our general thoughts? And we all come from our own set of values, our own set of experiences with our decision making and our judgment. Mm-hmm. And and that's all based on gender roles, right? So it's like historically,
right? You
go on a date, man pays for a date. Is that true? Is that not true? What happens when a woman tries to pick up the tab? Is that offensive? Is that not offensive? I mean, those kinds of things. And then, just going further into, or do we want to talk about that now? Let's talk about that now.
Talk about whatever you want. I'm listening.
No, I mean, I could go on, but.
No, please.
But then going further into when you get into, say, family roles and partnerships and, say, income earning, where it's like the power perspective of who someone is status-wise in the business world kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And, some men struggle with a woman earning more or being in a higher position in, business than they are. Many don't. And it's just interesting that as far as we've come, we haven't come that far. And this is a discussion we had last night, and I just found it really fascinating.
And so, I mean, for me, if I asked somebody on a date, then I would pay generally. And I think, and you need to take it a step further, like with friends or whatever. And I have some, female friends too, where like you just trade off. Uh-huh. Like, hey, I got last time or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, uh-huh. Or you split the bill or whatever. But I think even on I don't know. I guess I pay sometimes. I don't know why. Uh-huh. I think I pay more than I don't pay when I go out on a date.
Right.
But I don't think that's right, though. Is that what you're saying?
No, there is no right or wrong. I'm just wondering what your opinion is. I mean, I went out with a guy who said, just so you know, I'm very old-fashioned and I always pay. And I was like...
I don't know if old-fashioned means like paying, though. It's almost like...
But that's patriarchy.
It is patriarchy. You're right. You're right. In a gender role, right?
Right.
Like you'd always think that the male should pay for whatever, but that's not how it is anymore.
No.
I think, sometimes it's kind of nice to, like, it's like a gesture, sure. Right? Like, hey, I appreciate your time, and, let me buy you dinner. Mm-hmm. Let me treat you to dinner. But then in the reverse, it's also nice when the gal's like, hey, you know what? Let me get that. Let me get it this time. You've paid so many times, or participation. You could still have that expectation of, what do you call it? Chivalry, sure. I guess, right? Like opening doors and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, I think, a little bit of a respect thing. Mm-hmm. But I guess that's a gender role somewhat too.
Well, and I also wonder if it's a generational thing, because I don't think that's so much a thing with 20-year-olds and, 20-somethings.
What's funny is, well, Nate probably learned this from me, but he was on a date with a girl, and I was picking him up from the movies,
So cute.
It was funny, man. It was cool. And like he opens up the door for her. Uh-huh. And then she got in, and he shut the door, and he walked around, and she like, I'm kind of like sitting in the front, and I'm like, because it was his first date, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, hi, and she's like, he opened up the door for me. That was cool. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Cute. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But that's somewhat like, she probably saw her dad do that for her mom, or Nate sees me do that for, when I was married or when I was dating or whatever. Right. When I had a girlfriend, I mean, or whatnot. And that's like, I guess you kind of set the example, right? Uh-huh. But I think some of it's respect, but it's also like it's reciprocal. It's reciprocity too. Right. And giving and taking, right? Like if one person's paying for everything all the time, that's not okay. Right. But to participate, right? Sure. But then you go back to currency.
Cookie jar.
Yeah, right. It's a cookie jar. You go back to currency though. Like a really good friend of mine's been married forever, and his wife has worked, but not. I mean, she's essentially there to take care of their 4 children, and mm-hmm. There's a lot going on, mm-hmm. and that's a different currency. Sure. So clearly, she's not going to treat to Durant's or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It should not. So I don't know. I don't know if it always matters. And then we go back to that situation where I listed my 5 things, and one of them was financial stability. And you're like, dude, well, what if, so you're saying, so if the girl doesn't have money, then you wouldn't date her? So like, what about, you know, like your example was when you got divorced, you didn't really have anything. Oh, so I'm not.
Yeah, am I not date worthy?
Yes, you're not date worthy because you can't buy dinner. Like, are you serious right now?
Right.
And that was the currency thing, right? And
right.
so.
But you just brought up something. So when I think about love languages, because you said, you know, that she's taking care of the kids and that kind of thing, do the 5 love languages equal currency?
Yeah.
And how you are exchanging that is like.
Yeah, that's cookie jar.
That's good. That's a cookie jar.
That's
like
cookie jar stuff for sure. And
Yeah.
and you know, being aware of what your partner needs and then asking them and discussing that too. And I think that's a fair discussion. Like, hey, you know what, you go out on a date, like say, you know, whatever, a guy asks you on a date, then I think generally, like, what do you say? Not ethically, what, you know, like you would normally pay. Like if I asked somebody to go somewhere on a date, I would normally pay because I asked them. Etiquette. That's where I was looking for, etiquette. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But the etiquette would be that, right?
Right.
But then, like, say you date 3 or 4 times, and you're like, hey, you know, what does this look like moving forward? Like, do you expect the guy to always pay, or do you want to participate, or like, do you want to trade off on dates? Like, you plan one and I plan one, or like, how do we do that, or whatever?
Right.
But again, I think it goes back to that communication thing. It doesn't always have to be, you know,
Sure.
the way it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then I remember when I was a little kid, the gender roles were like mom took care of the house and dad like worked on cars and stuff. And I guess that could still work if you communicate about it. But like I can do my own laundry. I don't need somebody to do my laundry.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can make my own bed.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of people get trapped in what they think the idea is, even though everything's acceptable because everybody can create their own reality. And their fear of judgment by maybe their friends or their family is what keeps them from making changes. And then they're not authentic. So now we're in everything right now.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of just relationships or even business partnerships or whatnot can have a wrong turn or just maybe get stuck or a dead end, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's where, you know, it just goes back to communication. It's so funny.
It does.
It really does. But when you and your friend were talking about it, your patriarchy conversation, what were you guys talking about? Like, give me some scoopage.
No, we were just talking about the notion of, actually it started with age, and traditionally men are older than women in dating was one. Then we went into traditionally men take care of women in a partnership was what women were looking for. This is, you know, generations, obviously, generational story, and that's not now. But it's some women are still looking for that. Some men are looking for that.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
it's like
I think it's an individual thing. Right?
Yeah, it's an individual thing. And then traditionally, you know, when you go on dates and just the exchange where, you know, some women are just always expecting a man to take care of everything, and you know, just not having the communication about it, but having the expectation, and then that could actually just shut down the possibility for a relationship by not having a conversation, because it could have been changed by, oh, well, you know, if you do something once in a while, if we do exchange or whatever, or once in a while, like, just like you said, you know, just open up the conversation, changes everything.
Yeah.
And it could maybe a relationship could possibly happen where it wouldn't have before, because maybe somebody got offended because he paid for 5 dates and she didn't suggest anything, and she just assumed because the way he was behaving, everything was fine. Right?
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think, like, so now, what would the conversation be? You know, you have a boyfriend and say you move in together. What does that conversation look like from a gender role standpoint?
What conversation?
Well, like, okay, so when that has to be had, that conversation has to be had. Like, hey, you know, I'll mow the lawn and take care of the outside and take care of the cars, and then, like, you know, you take care of the inside, or we do it all together, or, you know, that's a conversation that should be had, right?
Absolutely, it
like
is.
shopping, just because, you know, generally it seems like the female may go to the store more than the male, because I don't know, just weird. Like, I don't know where shit's at in the store.
Amazon.
Because I don't really want to cook anyways. You know what I mean?
Amazon, Sprouts delivery.
Yeah, you're like freaking
Click
on your
click
thing and
ship.
have shit delivered, by
Right?
some like little robot thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe it can cook for you too. That'd be cool. But you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
do.
that goes back
I
to
do.
that same conversation.
Right.
And maybe that's a gender role conversation you have in the beginning of a relationship too. Not only just about who pays for dinner, but like, hey, what do you expect? Like
I think
moving
it's
on,
a
like what's your
huge
experience?
opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
That many people miss. I think going into relationships, many people miss a lot of opportunities no matter what. But just expectations, because the failure always comes in unmet expectation.
Yeah. Well, the failure comes in expectations to every relationship and every interaction, because somebody may have a different expectation than the other person, and then that's where conflict happens, right? Because you don't communicate well.
Yeah, and the only way that the expectation is failed is by not communicating it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to share it. People don't read your mind. And not sharing it, then creating a conflict by being disappointed, because that's a conflict, and then stepping back and shutting down and doing a stonewall and choosing to not talk because that's how you behave when you're angry. It's just all just a big situational bullshit.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
That all it takes is a conversation in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, whether it's about dinner or whether it's about housework or whether it's about, sharing responsibilities at home, whatever it is.
Right.
It's easy. It's also easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Communication, right?
Yeah.
So well, I guess that just blew that out of the water. So maybe we should just talk about communication every single. Right?
Well, communication is obviously woven in all these, because
Right.
that's going to keep us honest, and it's going to keep us honest with ourselves, honest with our partners.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Which keeps relationship on track, but it also keeps us on track.
So when you say about communication too, and I think this relates to this subject, we talk about, talking and then having the intent to listen and understand in communication, right?
Right.
And I have to say that doing this show, since we've started it, I don't know how many episodes we have, but it's helped me huge in all my relationships, right? Because we don't have other distractions. There's not thirds. We don't have our phone out. We're not looking at Facebook. We're not on a computer.
Right.
We actually have an interaction where we look at each other. We pay attention.
Right.
I listen to what you say. I think you're actually the first female I've ever listened to. It's pretty crazy, but like I have no other choice. You know what I mean?
We're trapped.
Like, but it's good. And I had this friend the other day. She said, "Hey, when I go out, I give people my time.
Yeah.
Like I put my phone away and I give people my time." And I'm like, "Man, that's so respectful." And I think we should all do that. Like, if you really want to be with somebody, well, then you're not texting somebody else on your phone. I get it. Like when you're watching a movie, you're sitting on the couch or whatever. And I get it.
Right.
But generally, you're not doing that. And you see so many times, like you see pictures of people, like say out to dinner, you look over. I think we were going to a fundraiser or a meetup or something. Remember we were in that restaurant, and there was like this huge group of gals, and they were all on a like bridesmaid.
They were on a bachelorette party.
And they all had their phones out. They were all sitting in this big freaking circle in this awesome party with like bottle service and everything.
Oh no, yeah, and there was music.
Nobody was present. Like no one was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, God dang, man, they're totally missing out. But that can be an addiction too.
Right.
And then you have that role where you get into a situation where you have to respond back right away if somebody texts you.
Right.
Like, where were you? You know what I mean? Because everybody has like immediate gratification and all that
Sure.
kind of stuff.
Sure.
I've been in relationships like that too, where you're like, they text back right away, and you're like, dude, are you ever present anywhere? You know what I mean? Like, how do you even do that? So, back to those gender role things. I wonder, what about sex? Let's talk about sex and gender roles.
How much time do we have?
I know. Well, we're only 13 minutes in,
Okay,
so we can roll this shit.
Let's do it.
No, seriously, let's do that.
Let's do it.
Because like initiating sex, you know what I mean? I think I think men are hornier than women when they're younger, and then it switches when we get older.
The peaks are different. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so is that like a
for men? It's 27, and for women it's 36, 38.
For me, it's like 19 to probably 75. But okay.
Cool.
Yeah. But no, like seriously.
I mean, that's just what the statistics show.
Okay.
I actually listened to that this morning.
Cool. So let's talk about it. So is there gender roles in sex? I don't think so. Do you? I don't think there is.
I don't know. I mean,
at this age? I mean, as old as we all are, some of us are older than others. I'm just saying. But I mean, like, is there? Does it even?
Not
Is there
naming any
even?
names.
Because I mean, when we're at this age, like, you know what you like, you know what you want, you know how to communicate that. Like, is there even gender roles? Like, because everybody's cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's have sex or let's make love or whatever you want to call it. Who says no?
I mean, I'm gonna say no. There's not. But that's just, I can only judge it based on my values, my experience, who I am. And you can only judge it based on that, who you are. So
yeah.
I'm going to say no.
Okay, let me
Now,
ask.
generally speaking, because we're speaking from ourselves.
Yeah, it seems like, when you're married in a relationship, you have less sex than you do when you're like dating. Why is that? From a gender role standpoint. Like I think every marriage I've had, well, no, yeah, I've had 2 of them. Is it because like we turn into assholes and the women aren't attracted to us anymore?
I can't
what?
answer that one. That was not my case.
That's not your case?
Mm-mm.
Never, huh?
Mm-mm.
Fuck. It's weird. So there's no gender role then?
I don't think.
So I thought we were gonna have this like great debate on sex and gender roles, but it's totally blew up my face. Like there's.
I mean,
nothing
I
really
can
to
tell
talk
you
about.
whatever you want me to say.
I don't want you to say. I want you to say the truth. Like, be
that
authentic, right?
I think I'm authentic. I think based on where people are, say you're raising toddlers.
Okay.
Or say you go to work and you have a 12-hour day and then you go to the gym and you work out. Both mom and dad are just freaking exhausted. Nobody's going to have sex at night. Or are they? I don't know. They can have sex in the morning.
Probably would wanna.
I don't know. Exactly.
I don't know.
No, I do know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
It's just like the more overwhelmed and stressed and just the more you've got going on and the less energy you have and the less engaged you are with your partner. Just you have to add all the layers.
Right.
So it's like, let's peel back the layers of the onion on this one. I mean, where can we go with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I guess you're right.
So in general and statistically, when people are married, they do have less sex. True. United States has less sex than the rest of the world, based on what these studies show.
We should change that. Just saying.
I mean, it's just
Maybe that's why we're the most obese too, because
think?
we're not as sexually active.
because it's good cardio.
Fuck, it could be.
I mean,
I don't know. Just saying. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I digress. As usual.
yeah. But I think that it's just all those things that add up to whatever that person's situation is. So depending on what your situation was, if you're not happy, you're probably not going to have as much sex as if you are happy. However, flip it. If you're happy, you're going to have more sex, right? So, and you're going to live longer. And, it's just all kinds of things that are just so much better for you, right?
Right.
So, again, live an authentic life. Be a happy person. Have more sex.
Communicate about your gender roles, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. I like that topic. And good thing you changed it from patriarchy because it's hard to say.
Yeah, patriarchy is just a slice of it, gender roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's Gender Roles with Scott Freymuller and Shelley Netco. We appreciate everybody watching. Have a great day.